Okay. Oh, fuck. No. Oh, why did I, think this was gonna happen? And then it did happen. Look. Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm back. There's a lot of people here. I wrote an essay. It largely surrounds this idea that my brain hasn't been able to let go of for a while. I am in my mid-20s. One of the things that it has come with is constantly asking myself, what does the freest version of my life look like? A question that can be answered about 100,000 bajillion ways, depending on who you're asking. So I'm not offering an answer, but I'm potentially offering a lens through which we can try to find an answer through. The phrase that I've been thinking about can, I think, be traced back to Emma Lazarus, who was an American poet most well known for the quote on the Statue of Liberty, "There is a man staring at me right now." She was involved in helping Jewish people flee anti-Semitic Eastern Europe in the late 1800s, and the quote in reference to anti-Semitism is, "Until we are all free, none of us are free." Very badass. She's also lauded as a forerunner of the Zionist movement, which is, and I cannot stress this enough, sorely missing the point, but I digress. The sentiment has also been repeated, although not verbatim, by Maya Angelou, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Opal Lee, the latter of whom made Juneteenth a federally recognized holiday. Academia's understanding of how the natural world works is slowly shifting, but our largely American, sorry, I just burped, but our largely American narrative of individualism is very slow to follow. I posted a video on this. You can go watch it here. We can't escape each other any more than the roots of a plant can, and why would we? The question that I'm posing in this is, can this inescapability be a northern star in our own, inner lives? Claire Keegan's Small Things Like These was displayed in basically every single bookstore window I came across about 2 or 3 years ago when it was published. And I read it a few months ago, and I cannot stop thinking about it. It felt like an Aesop's fable, if you ever read those as a kid. If you're planning on reading it, I highly recommend that you do, and I also highly recommend that you go into it blind like I did, which means that you'll probably have to skip this section of the video. You can start again at this timestamp if you don't want any spoilers. I think that this story is mainly about a dispositional shift towards the world. It is set in 1980s Ireland, and it centers a man named Bill Furlong, his wife Eileen, and their 5 daughters, and a local Magdalene laundry. Now, if you don't know what those are, I'll tell you. Magdalene laundries in Ireland, and I say that because they also existed in other countries. In Ireland, they existed from the 1700s to the late 1900s, and the last one closed in 1993. These asylums were essentially penitentiary houses that housed over 30,000 fallen women and forced them to do laundry for their communities and other services. And I say fallen women. Initially, that just meant sex workers, women who were sex workers, mainly Protestant sex workers. And it later expanded because they wanted more people in these penitentiary houses to include victims of sexual violence and orphans, really anyone who didn't fit the mold of Irish society at that time. And these laundries were controlled and funded by the Roman Catholic Church and the state of Ireland. In 2013, a report came out that detailed the very real ways that the Irish state colluded in this system, despite their constant denials. Some nuns went as far to say that saying that the Magdalene laundries were bad is anti-Catholic, and that they were providing a service to the community. So, why was it bad? We were doing your laundry. And this leads us back to the book. In Small Things Like These, there is this central conflict between Furlong and his wife Eileen. Eileen insists that because their 5 daughters are safe and not in these laundries. Why should they care? In response, Furlong points out that the continued operation and silence around the laundry, which is like right down the road from them, will affect their girls whether they want it to or not. And that the whole idea that the laundry is separate from their family is an illusion that the state and the church wants them to believe. He points out that their family already lives really close to the covenant and that the girls are planning on being part of the church's choir when they get a little bit older. And also that unavoidably the girls trapped in the covenant are doing laundry for the town. Like, their family is receiving clean laundry from the girls who are doing it as free labor. So whether they acknowledge it or not, the community is inherently tied to the women in this laundry, and therefore to all of the horrific things being done to these girls. Magdalene laundries were obviously a bad thing. And I also think it's worth noting that institutions like this exist around the world still. Maybe in different forms, but they still exist. I think the question that this leads me to is, if Furlong's assertion that we are inherently bound to one another is true, does this clarify anything for us? I also recently finished reading Motherhood by Sheila Heti, in which she deliberates everything around having a kid while you maybe don't want a kid and while you're an artist. She asks if it's okay to not want children. Does it make you a bad person? What it means to have a child when you maybe actually don't want one, and what it means to be a creative and put things out in the world, and is that the same thing as putting a child out into the world? I enjoyed this. I think that the book is very geared towards white cis women, affluent white cis women. So there's that. But I also think that the question that she poses has a lot to do with other aspects of personhood and isn't just confined to like whether or not one should have a kid. I don't know. I think when I was reading some parts of this book, I was like, okay. But in the end, I really am glad that I read it. When discussing the prospect of having a baby, the protagonist asks this question: why should I strenuously make something come true for me when the fate will manifest in other lives as well? If we see our lives tied to other people's lives and that the decisions we make will undeniably affect other people, then does this clarify our own decisions that we see as personal? And it might be true that more and more people are understanding this as true. And I think a lot of people are coming to understand this out of necessity in the United States. I read an article by Emmy O'Brien called "The Family Problem Now" in Praxis magazine, which you can find online. And in this article, I think O'Brien touches on something that could both be a justification for and a critique of Heti's main character's deliberations. Essentially, non-traditional ways of caring for each other, and by non-traditional, I mean not the nuclear family, that these ways of caring for each other have been used by BIPOC people for centuries. But capitalism is making it so difficult for people to live in the United States that even white working class families are now engaging in these ways of caring. This broad context of protracted capitalist crisis has facilitated dramatic changes in family life. More children are coming out as trans and queer. Our sex lives, when we have them, are more likely oriented towards non-reproductive sex. More people are choosing to not marry or live as single. More mothers are in the workforce, and more adults are working multiple jobs. Some of these trends are long-standing phenomena among people who are Black, poor, and queer, but all are increasingly widespread, making the disappearance of the family norm shared by broad sections of white America in the post-war era. A housewife, a husband with a stable family wage job, children in school, a house on a mortgage, an image of bourgeois family normality briefly available to a stratum of the white working class. This is no longer meaningfully accessible to nearly anyone and no longer desired by many. The world has changed, and with it, the family. Both O'Brien and Heti clarify something for us then, that maybe there's freedom in our inescapability of one another. I like how this look is giving 2012 emo. Hetty is proposing that if we force something upon ourselves, then that will have a ripple effect for everyone around us. So then why force that decision? Like, it feels like our decisions become clearer when we think about the consequences of our actions affecting people around us in addition to ourselves. O'Brien highlights how we are seeing the inadequacies of capitalism, that the nuclear family has always been a false salvation, and now that the circumference of economic hardship is expanding past BIPOC people, that there is now a broader recognition in American culture of the benefits of things like communal child rearing, and that they are perhaps more stable and have potentially always been. So the question is, can we see this hardship as both a colossal issue, which it is, and also as a way of thinking about the world that is potentially more freeing? So then, if we consider this to be true, then how do we trust this idea enough to let it impact our lives? Like, how do we trust this idea that we're continually being told is untrue enough that it has effect on ourselves and also the people around us? I recently read Gwendolyn's Former Stripper Part-Time Visionary. Wonderful book. If you don't already know them, they are a public scholar and a supporter of libraries and rice farms in Sierra Leone. And they write and talk about this idea constantly, I think, even if indirectly. And the book is a collection of their essays, I think most of which you can find online separately, but it's nice to have them all in one place. And I highly recommend that you buy it. I think all the proceeds do go to their projects in Sierra Leone. But fact check me. Their essay, Revolutionary Love Costs You Something, they ask this question: if I cannot trust myself to leap and fall into these communities that I have built, why did I build them? If these communities I say that I cultivate cannot lean on each other instead of the false safety of individualism, why are they here? What do we do this for if not the risk of caring for one another as well? They are constantly, throughout all of their writing and podcasts and everything, begging us to materialize our own beliefs, to take them out of our heads and put them into our hands. They also, I believe, offer an answer to this question. In their musings in the beginning of the book on being a stripper, they say this: you must align yourself with the belief that what's coming is not just possible, but inevitable. If you really want something to happen for yourself, for other people, for everyone, etc., it is not enough to hope that it'll happen. You actually have to embody the belief that it will happen, that it is inevitable, that success reliably exists in the future, and you are just headed towards that. I think this also brings us back to small things like these again. I'm trying not to spoil anything. Keegan writes, Furlong's fear more than outweighed every other feeling, but in his foolish heart, he not only hoped but legitimately believed that they would manage. Furlong asserts that one has to believe in the inevitability of liberation, that the process may be long and rugged, but the outcome is inevitable. So maybe if we extend that outwards, it isn't enough to hope that our future is brighter, that maybe we have to believe that a brighter future is unavoidably in our path. Maybe we are interconnected whether we like it or not, and that is precisely what frees us. And I don't know, maybe this also extends to like smaller personal goals. Like, if you want to be able to do a pull-up, maybe you just have to like see yourself doing a pull-up in the future. Instead of being like, yeah, I could do that. You could be like, no, I will do that. I don't know. This is kind of getting into like the manifestation stuff. I feel like this is different, but maybe it's not. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. If you agree, disagree, or are confused about what I'm saying. That's all I have to say right now. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.